involves different activities, meaning these activities gives you plenty of opportunity to listen, observe, and experience how language is used and how language works. So, exposure to language is big when you want to acquire it rather than learn it. So, if you are a language acquirer, you have to put yourself in a way that language is ripe with action and understandable context. So, this approach focuses on input, comprehension, and meaningful communication. First is the input. Input refers to what's being relayed to the language learner, the packages of language that are delivered to and received by the listeners. So, the natural approach puts high emphasis on not just the amount but also the nature of the input received. So, input is also known as exposure. For proper, meaningful acquisition to occur, the input should also be meaningful and comprehensible. Next is the comprehension. In the natural approach, the initial focus really is on comprehension. The crux of the issue is, do you understand what is being said? So, understanding the meaning of something can be done in a variety of ways. Besides grammar breakdowns, comprehension must precede production for true internal learning to be done. And the last is the communication. When it comes to language acquisition, the natural approach places more significance in communication than grammar. In order for the child or learner to eventually produce their own sentences, it's more crucial that he or she is constantly exposed to meaningful communication than grammar lessons. So now, Jetryl will continue the discussion.
Now we're going to discuss about the historical development of natural approach. So first we have the year 1960s to 1970s. Theories of language acquisition began to evolve with scholars like Chomsky influencing ideas about innate language ability. So Chomsky's universal grammar, Chomsky's theories in year 1960s to 1970s were foundational. So his idea that humans have an innate ability to learn language was sparked a shift away from the behaviors being switched to language learning as a result of reinforcement and education. So this laid the groundwork for later researchers like Russian who would explore how this innate ability plays out in physical language learning. So next we have year 1981. So Stephen Russian publishes second language acquisition and second language learning. So introducing key hypotheses, including the acquisition and learning hypothesis and input hypothesis. So Russian's acquisition and learning hypothesis building on Chomsky's ideas of an innate language faculty. Russian introduced the acquisition and learning hypothesis in year 1981, which taught Chomsky's ideas and applied it to second language learning. So Russian also argued that language acquisition, which is learning naturally through exposure, is far more effective rather than language learning, which is studying the rules consciously. So his work in 1981 was directly connected to Chomsky's theory, as Russian was applying the idea of an innate language ability to have second language research and learn. So next, year 1983. So in year 1983, Russian and Jetryl further developed the natural approach in their book, The Natural Approach Language Acquisition in the Classroom. So they emphasizing comprehensible input and low uncertainty environment. So the natural approach in 1983, Russian and Jetryl expanded on the ideas in Russian's 1981 book to develop the natural approach. So this method was a direct response to the traditional grammar-based teaching method, and by focusing on comprehensible input and creating a low anxiety learning environment, the natural approach is built on Russian's ideas or Russian series, emphasizing natural, less stress and immersive language acquisition. So it wasn't just about the theory anymore, but it was about applying Russian's ideas to the real world classrooms. So next we have year 1980s to 1990s. So the natural approach gains popularity in language teaching, influencing methodology So, task-based and communicative approaches from the 1990s to present, which is the opinion research into language acquisition reinforces many principles of the natural approach. So it adapts and integrates with newer methodologies such as task-based language teaching and communicative language teaching. So task-based and communicative language approaches from the 1990s to present or onward, the newer methods like task-based language teaching or DBL and communicative language teaching are still able to fashion ideas. So this newer method, which is in DBLT and CLT, emphasizes real communication and interactive learning, which helps or integrates fashion ideas about the comprehensible input into more structured learning environment or classroom activities. So the shift towards task-based and communicative teaching approaches was influenced by Russia's emphasis on meaningful communication and language exposure in the natural context. So next, let's move on to the main components of the natural approach. So we have 5 main components. First, we will talk about step fashion. So step fashion, key feature series input and imply factor shifts the approach, which is the natural approach. So step fashion series can be applied to various learning. So step fashion wants us to immerse ourselves in environments where the language is spoken naturally, or which is learned naturally through constant exposure, such as to the natural conversations like in the native speakers or watching movies or listening to music. So this aligns with the input hypothesis as it provides comprehensible input that is just beyond the learner's current level. So like what I have said, Russian focuses on learning languages naturally through constant exposure to the environment. So next we have Tracy Terrell. So Tracy Terrell is a co-developer with Russian, which focuses on practical applications in teaching. So Tracy Terrell's practical application in teaching, particularly through the natural approach, focus on creating a naturalistic and low-stress environment for language acquisition. So Tracy Terrell's primary goal is to enable students to communicate effectively throughout the target language, which is it involves real-life situations and meaningful interactions, rather than focusing solely just in grammar rules. They are just the same way the interaction. So Tracy Terrell also focuses on communication and fluency. So with the understanding that errors can be corrected throughout the exposure and practice. So next we have James Asher. So James Asher is the creator of Total Physical Response, or TPR, which aligns with natural learning principles. So James Asher aligns with the natural learning principles through his development of the TPR, or Total Physical Response. So the Total Physical Response method, which is by James Asher, which aligns to his learning principles. James Asher tell that this approach, which is based on the idea that language learning should be natural, stress-free, and closely tied to physical movement, much like how young children learn their first language. So that was James Asher's approach like. So Asher also observed that young children learn language by listening to commands and responding with physical actions. So young children learn language through first listening to the commands and then responding with their physical actions. So James Asher's method follows a natural sequence of language learning, which learners first understand cannot expand the language and introduce maybe. So that's what I have said. That the young children learn language first listening to the commands and then responding with physical action after that. Next, we have Kenji Hakota. So, Kenji Hakota is an expert, or Kenji Hakota has significantly influenced discussion and bilingualism in language acquisition, particularly in relation to the natural approach to his research and contribution. Kenji Hakota is an expert on how people learn languages and speaking more than one language which is bilingualism, so affects our brain and the society. So Hakota also showed that knowing two languages can make people smarter, better at solving problems, being more creative. He also studied how the age at which you learn a language affects how you will learn it. So Hakota believes that our age affects how we learn the language. So like Mr. Concussion, Hakota also believes that it is very important to learn language in a way that is natural and easy to understand, or the language that is not very stressful and have a low stress environment. So Hakota agrees that reducing stress and making learning enjoyable helps people learn languages. So in short, Hakota's work supports teaching methods that make languages less stressful and more effective to students. Lastly, we have Michael Long. Michael Long contributed to the understanding of interaction and input in language learning. So, Michael Long showed that talking with others help people learn languages better. He emphasized the importance of giving language input that learners can understand. Michael Long and four other components have the same methods, have the same views on how people learn languages. They much more believe that learning the languages and the natural accessible environment they can learn the language much better. So Michael Long's work highlights the importance of real-life conversations and understandable language in learning new languages. Michael Long also wants to use that in order to learn language, we should be highlighting the real-life situations, or applying the real-life situations and understandable language in books so that we can learn the language much more better. So these five individuals have all played significant roles in the development and the support of the natural approach throughout these years.
Let's proceed to the issues and criticisms of natural approach. First, we have here the institution's grammar instructions. The natural approach de-emphasizes explicit grammar teaching, which may lead to errors and gaps in grammatical knowledge, according to Michael in 1991. So critics suggest that while the natural approach emphasizes the communicative competence, influencing is valuable. And then it may lead to learning insufficient grammatical knowledge, limiting their ability and to perform accurately and fluently in more formal and grammar teaching could be better addressed. So we have here the second is the limited speaking practice. By focusing primarily on listening and comprehensions, the approach can limit opportunities for learners to practice speaking, which is essential for developing communicative competence, according to Swain M. 1985. So the criticism that natural approach limits speaking practice based on the idea that learners need more structures and interactive speaking activities, keeping the development fluency, communicative competence, lack of affective considerations. Okay. The approach may not adequately address emotional factors such as anxiety and motivations, which can significantly impact language learning, Russian test or 1952. So the approach is powerful method for language acquisition, particularly in its emphasis, comprehensible input in its stress-free environment for learning. However, by not directly addressing emotional factors like anxiety of motivations, it may lead some by not directly to engage full with the language. So let's proceed to the application in language teaching and learning. Use target language often and so top basic greetings and introductions. 2. Provide understanding in simple present tense. 3. Focus on the meaningful communications or role play about the asking directions. So engage that in real life conversation and activities like role plays and discussions. Set a role play. Students practice asking and giving directions. And that will be all.